And the shamanic experiences, practices, whatever, is called soul retrieval. And I think there's a whole other experience that happens, and it is about passion returning. What happens is people start feeling a little bit lost or disoriented, or they feel like they got to change something in their lives, or something feels like wants to come back to them. Sometimes people have childhood memories or adult memories, something that feels like, gosh, I just want people to hear me, as an example. Or, gosh, I just wish that I could express myself. Those are some of the language around the concept of soul retrieval. Or people who've had accidents. Sometimes in an accident, what happens is, in order to survive the accident, the person will shoot their spirit out and go numb and just get through the accident. Many times people say, I don't remember the accident, and it's because their spirits aren't fully in their bodies. Sometimes a trauma that happened at childhood can bring back the desire to remember who you really are. Something feels empty or lacking. And my experience with what I call your passion returning has to do with, that's exactly what happens. There's a happiness, an awareness of who you are that returns. An example is this. When I was I had a journey one time when I was about 3 years old, and my daddy would say to me, stop doing that. And the stop doing that had to do with talking to the nature spirits. As a 3-year-old child, I was just in love with everything around me. You know, the grass, the trees, the birds, the bees, all of it. Well, my daddy didn't particularly care for me talking to all these unseen spirits, and he would say, stop it. And to get his point across, at one time he spanked me, he began to spank me. And when he would spank me, of course, the impression for a 3-year-old, for myself, was that there was punishment related to the spiritual world. And when I went into a sacred journey place and looked at that picture, I realized I no longer had to do it my daddy's way. So in that experience, I claimed myself again. And it was like the whole spiritual world opened up again. The world of the unseen just came out to life experience and listening again. So that's an example of something that can happen in our world, that something that happened as a child, we put it away because it's not accepted. It's looked at as something other than appropriate. You know, how many children, people I've heard speak of their childhood saying things like, well, my creative energy was never allowed. And here's another story. The stories tell it better. There was a lady who came to me, who's about 35 years of age, and she remembered 2 things. One was, when she was 6 years old, something happened, and when she was 11 years old, she could remember that this boy got in the back seat of a car with her. Or the boy got her in the back seat of the car. So, I usually drum and take us into this quiet place, and when we went into the spiritual world, the visioning part, I saw this young boy standing in front of a cave. And I asked the person laying next to me, do you know who this is? And she said, yes, I do. When I was 6 years of age, I gave him my creative energy to hold for me. And I thought it was beautiful that she even had that awareness at 6. So anyway, I said to her, would you let him know that you're here to receive your creative energy and thank him for doing his job? And the moment she did that, that energy that showed himself as a little boy moved out of the way, and there was a cave behind him. So when we explored the cave, and this is in the spirit world, of course, there was this little girl in the back of the cave just cowered down and just wanting to be loved. And what I remember of that journey is there was a cat that came in and started playing with this self-essence. And in the process of it, the little girl knew what was happening. I always asked the aspect of the person if they're ready to come home, and asked the person if they're ready for that aspect of themselves to come home. And she said yes. So the light of who this child was just entered her body. You know, it came in on the cat and it entered her heart space and just filled her with the light. I could see it. And at the same moment, almost the same moment, that the light came back in her, she remembered what that boy said. And the boy said, you better not tell. And the moment she released that place in her throat, the light filled her throat. And it was this lovely experience of seeing this light just flow through this being's self. And afterwards, she looked 10 years younger. And she just felt like she could now go do her artistic, creative thing that she loved and really wanted to do, and did. And that she no longer had to hold that question mark about what happened with that boy at 11. So those are some of the things that happen in what the shamanic practices call soul retrieval. And it really was for her, her passion returning. The passion of her creative energy came back for her. It was lovely. So that's what I feel like happened. And for me personally, there have been time after time of just waking up and feeling like I have my self-worth, my self-dignity, my awareness of who I am just return over and over again. And so that's the experience of a soul gathering or a soul retrieval.
How do you achieve this? What is the form?
Well, somebody usually comes to me, or I go to wherever they are, and it's a very gentle thing of lying down on the floor, and I would usually touch their elbows, so I have a physical contact with them. And I explain to them what's going to happen, and I drum, and I call on the spiritual world to assist us. The person's guides, my guides, the spirits who probably are already present, and those who will enhance this experience happening. So we get still and our bodies get quiet, and then in some quiet place, there's all of a sudden an awareness of a vision that comes forth. So I usually have the person speak out loud and I speak out loud so we can be in harmony of what's happening. We can hear the adventures that we're both having. And in the adventure, it's like the spirits guide the whole way. The spiritual world directs what happens, or the images that come. And then in speaking the images, the person knows what happens, I know what happened, and then when the experience is complete, the lights return, the passion's back, and we close it very gently, and the person goes home and just allows that integration to happen. And it's, I don't know any other way to compare it, except that it's like whenever something beautiful returns, there's a period of integration where the cell's kind of been cleaned up. It's like cleaning the cable on a battery. You take a brush and you clean it up real good so the contact's good. So in that's what kind of happens with the cell. It gets kind of reamed out, and the contact happens again with this passion in a person's life. That's the gist. It's basically a journey.